Hey guys, we're back with another week of Find Your Film. This is a very interesting week because we have two movies that are, I don't know, I think really center on maybe mythology. They might be the truth. There's a lot of there's water involved. There are stamps. Bruce Perky, the abominable Dr. Perks. Are you a stamp collector? Have you ever been a stamp collector?
Never been a stamp collector.
Have you ever been a Eric Holmes? Have you ever been a deep sea diver? Have you fixed ships or anything in the deep? Have you what?
Absolutely not. I
I
hate the
thought wait,
ocean.
no, wait. I thought no, Eric Holmes. Yeah, if listeners, if you haven't been listening to our Find Your Film, there is a common thread. I thought, wait, was it you or Anderson Cowan, my buddy at Cinematics? Thank you for wearing the Cinematic shirt, Eric Holmes. One of you guys was a huge fan of fish and marine life. Was that you, Eric
That
Holmes? I thought it was
no,
you.
that's
No?
100% Anderson.
So, so what? So what would happen if we put you deep down in the sea with some regalia, deep sea diving regalia? How
I,
long would you
I
survive there?
so if I went down deep sea, I would see an anglerfish, shit my pants, they'd be attracted to the scent and eat me alive.
So never ever. Someone gave you $1,000, Eric Holmes. Stay down there in the ocean for about 10 minutes. Would you do it?
For 1,000?
Okay, good. Right?
Probably not for 1,000. Like there's a price I would though. I
Okay.
think just $1,000, like the time it would take to get there, be like I just work a normal job and you know
Well, Eric Holmes, I was just he does have a I don't even know if it's a fear. You have an aversion to fish or just a dislike of fish or
especially ones with teeth,
okay,
and they
so
do this
are you not a
and
fan?
have,
And
have little light bulbs hanging in front of their head.
that is not a joke.
Sharks,
That is
no.
yeah.
Megalodons, no. Piranhas, flying piranhas, especially not.
Okay, so do you get uncomfortable? Do you even eat fish? I mean, I know there's not
Yeah,
going to be a okay,
yeah.
you eat okay, sushi. Okay, so good. Uni. I know you like uni. You like uni, right?
That's urchin.
Yeah, urchin. You like the
No,
urchins.
no.
Oh,
That
no,
that
no.
it. I haven't had any good uni. Well, I'll just say that if it's good, I haven't had the good version yet. Everything I've tasted of the uni always tastes like earwax,
Oh,
kind of.
earwax. Okay.
Yeah.
Bruce Perky, are
Not
you a
that I know
sushi?
what earwax tastes like. But
I don't. Yeah, right. No, no, no,
Mm.
no. We've never tasted earwax. None of us. We're clean. We're respectable gentlemen. Bruce Perky, are you a sushi guy? Are you a deep sea diving guy? Are you a marine guy? No. What?
I've eaten some sushi. I like sushi. I'm not an expert at it. I've eaten some sushi casually. Oh, I got a question for you, Greg.
Uh
Are you
oh.
a philatelist?
Philatelist? Yeah, I philatel a lot, and maybe that's
Okay.
why I don't date too much. No, I'm sorry. What is a What is a philatelist? What is a? Sorry, I was kidding, listeners. No, I wasn't. But What is a philatelist, Bruce
It's a
Perky?
stamp collector.
Oh,
That's
for
what you
oh,
asked me.
don't you know what? Don't start with the sophisticated. We're gonna get really sophisticated this episode. Eric
that
Holmes, speak. Bring
that
him.
that
Speak. Yes, sir.
not to get more off the rails than what we've already
Yes, I
done, and it's
apologize for
been
that.
3 minutes into the
I
show. But
apologize for that.
I do trivia with my coworker Tammy every day at work, and
Okay.
philatelist came up today, and I'm like, oh, this is a stamp collector. How'd you know that? Funny thing.
That is amazing. Out of the three of us knew what a philatelist is, and that means Eric Holmes and Bruce Perky are way more intelligent than I am, and I'm gonna show my stupidity as we review a couple of these movies. The reason why we talked about stamp collecting and deep sea diving is stamp collecting is a big part of this documentary. I don't know if I should say that. Bruce Perky's bringing out the air quotes. Is this a documentary or is this wholly made up thing? It's called The Penny Black. That's the first big feature we're going to be doing. And then after that, we're talking about deep sea diving. No, there's no Jacques Cousteau stuff. There's no uni or uni eating. There's no sushi eating. Undina is a movie that is really interesting. It's an indie film, very interesting about a woman who may have a connection to the waters, the sea. It might be based on myth. Also being covered today is might be covering today is Dr. Perks, aka Dr. Phibes. Did you go out on the town to your local theater today to bring back some news?
Yeah, I went and watched with my son. We went and watched A Quiet Place Part Two.
Quiet Place Part Two, and we're also going to bring out. I just want to say, I'm excited to hear what you said about that. At the end of this program, we're also going to be covering a Vincent Price film called The Abominable Dr. Phibes, right? Dr. Phibes. And that is Bruce Perky's choice. That was foisted on me because of the what's in the box rules. I have to, they saw Rams, he saw Rams, and Eric saw Rams last week. And now he made me see The Abominable Dr. Phibes. Eric Holmes, have you ever seen that movie before, or was this also your first time watching it?
It was my first time watching it. And in the past, I thought I did, but I think I got that confused with the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Pretty much Doctor weird name, like it all jumbles in my head. But especially after watching it, I'm like, no, I've never seen this one before. But we'll talk about it, and I can't wait.
We will talk about it. It's interesting. After we recorded last week's episode of Find Your Film, Bruce Perky was really excited to get us on the Abominable Dr. Phibes train, and he actually sent us some really cool links where we could see it, even showed us some better links where we could watch it. So I'm assuming this movie might be near and dear to Bruce Perky's heart. We'll see if Eric and I loved it just as much as Bruce did. Just FYI, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, I really love Rams, and I was so excited to hear and happy to hear that Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes also loved Rams. So without further ado, let us get right into the meat of things. The Penny Black. I was really looking for a movie to watch, an indie movie for us to watch. I was under the gun, and I just pretty much took this out of a hat and thinking it's like some kind of indie documentary, might as well spotlight it. It's described as a nonfiction noir thriller. Okay, so that is what the publicists are calling it. Interesting, they're calling it that. That's the main thing. Shouldn't it be a documentary though? Why is it not called a documentary? Is the publicist, is he or she showing their hand regarding the Penny Black? And ultimately, the movie or the documentary, it centers on this guy named Will. And Will, he's had a troubled life. His father is a con man. He's been a con man all his life. So imagine yourself growing up in the shadow where your father, whatever your father tells you is pretty much a lie. Whatever your father is trying to do, a lot of it is a scam to make some money. So Will grew up in that environment. And what happens is we enter Will's life as he's living somewhere in West Hollywood. He actually, the director behind the Penny Black, he met Will, I think, at a get together, and he found out Will's story. And the story is Will, one evening outside his apartment, there's this guy. I forgot the name of the man. Do you remember the name of the man?
Roman. I think it was Roman.
Thank you, Bruce. Roman. There's a big guy named Roman. He's smoking cigarettes. He's Russian. And one night, as everyone's want to do when you go outside and you're smoking cigarettes, you end up talking to the person who's smoking cigarettes near you. So what happens is Will starts talking to Roman, and Roman, they're both strangers, the comfort of strangers. Roman tells Will about a extensive stamp collection that he has, and he asks Will a favor. Hey, Will, can you? I'm gonna be out of town for a couple of days. Do you mind holding on to my stamp collection? Simple enough task. They're neighbors. Anyways, Will gets he's being a nice neighbor. He actually lets Roman give him those stamps, and he thinks it's gonna be just for a couple of days. Will comes to find out that the stamps, these this is just not this is not one of these really stamps that you can just put on eBay for about $10 or $12. Each of these stamps, a lot of these stamps are supposedly worth thousands and thousands of dollars, including the film's moniker, The Penny Black, which they get into a lot in this quote unquote documentary. So the entire movie centers on what happened to Roman, what is Will going to do with the stamps, and this movie / documentary, it takes place over a period of 4 years, and it runs 98 minutes. I remember Bruce Perky was messaging me early last weekend and was telling me that he started watching the movie and he was really immersed in this movie. What's interesting is I should have actually requested interviews, and I would have called out director Joe Saunders. I would have called out producer Alex Greer and documentary subject Will Cassad Smith. My first question would ask them, is this documentary absolutely fake? Because Eric Holmes, you were gently calling me out of my cryptocurrency. We're going to talk about that in a second, which is, you're such a nice guy doing that. I would bet a lot of my crypto that this movie is, what is a fake penny? What it's like? What do you call this? What is like those fake coins?
A slug?
I don't know.
Would that be a word for it?
This is a fugazi. It's a fugazi. The penny black is really a real stamp, but I believe that this movie is a total fake, fake, F for fake. I'm gonna get to my ultimate opinion of the penny black. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to
Right.
say about this movie. Bruce Berkey, Dr. Perks, what do you think of the penny black?
Well, first of all, I'm on the fence like you are as well. I first of all, it is entertaining. It's very interesting, and as you start watching it, you immediately start asking questions, and I think where everyone's going to be balancing is will lying and keeping things from the movie makers. Is he telling some of the truth and partial lies? Is he totally lying? Is he telling totally the truth? Or are the filmmakers making it all up? And I did definitely wonder that myself. But then there's certain scenes where there's a point where they take a trip and meet some people in Arizona. That seemed like real people to me. And that was actually one of the moments in the movie I thought just blew my mind, because those people were scary and creepy as hell.
Yeah, they felt real. That felt like a real moment.
This is one of those movies that kind of lives in that weird space, kind of like Catfish or pick your favorite Blair Witch kind of movie, where they might be putting us on all the way, or it might be that, like, once again, I'm just kind of repeating myself, it might be the truth. They're telling us the total truth, and this Will guy is some level of deceptive. I'm kind of up in the air on it as far as the truth or the validity of it, but I'm not up in the air on saying it's a worthwhile watch. I think if it sounds interesting to you, I think it's an interesting watch. If it doesn't sound interesting to you, you might be then just don't dive into it at all.
That is very cool. Bruce Perky, The Penny Black, currently out on all digital platforms this week. Eric Holmes, do you follow on Bruce Perky's train regarding recommending or enjoying The Penny Black as an experience?
Yes. I didn't really think of whether it was a fake documentary or a real documentary as I was watching it. But now that you guys mentioned it, I'm like kind of, well, first of all, if it's a real documentary, I have problems with how they treat the subject, because they do strongly suggest that maybe he's working unethically without really much to go on other than who else could it be? And if you're going to indict someone for something like that, I think you need a little more than just we have a hunch that this thing may have happened, especially if this is someone that's given you 4 years of their life for you to be able to make a movie. I think it's a unethical and kind of a dickheaded move to throw someone under the bus in that manner. But if it's a fake documentary, zero problems with this, and it's very entertaining. Yeah, this kind of reminded me a lot of Don't Fuck with Cats, where it starts off as there's no, that I can remember, there's no animals being harmed in this, but it does that thing where it starts off as here's this thing, and then just the more it goes on, the more odd it gets, and like things kind of uncover almost to when they went to the people's house in Arizona, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like the story she was telling, I was like, holy fucking shit. I'll just leave it at that.
That's another documentary. Like, that whole family, that's another whole different thing, right?
But this is and I'm glad they did this in a movie and not like a 6-part docu-series. Like, as these docu-series kind of go, they kind of overstay their welcome a lot. This one's just in and out, and it tells a story. It's very compelling, very entertaining, and I would definitely recommend it, with that one caveat, of course, with if this is a real documentary and they threw the subject under the bus the way they did, I think that's unethical.
You think the treatment of Will wasn't too fair?
I don't think it was fair at all. But again, if this is a fake documentary, that's just a storyline, and whatever, I'm fine with it. I'm
less of a humanitarian, and then Eric Holmes is. He's a very good man. I'm gonna say the same thing for Bruce Perky. I'll vouch for him as well. Yeah, I'm pretty much a sociopath. So whether this movie is a fake or real, I was entertained. I was really cool, and you know what? Maybe they treated Will the wrong way, but they got some good stuff. They got some really good stuff out of Will, and you don't understand. You, like Bruce was saying, you don't know if Will's telling the truth there's something that happens to one of the stamp books. We're not going to get into what happens to it, and you're wondering, maybe Will is has something to do with what happened to one of the stamp books, and then it cuts to a certain I know what Eric Holmes is saying. There is a certain situation in editing where, if and sometimes it's all about the editing and the way this movie is edited. It can paint Will in a certain way, especially if you love, I don't know, I mean, this has something to do with water too, and boats and everything like that. There's a lot of different things, a lot of
Oh
different
yeah, the
elements.
boat.
There's a lot of really interesting things, and Eric is right. But look, I think Eric, actually, you had a really cool way of thinking about this. You just enjoyed the actual movie,
Yeah.
whether it's fake or not. It's just a really, really awesome experience. This movie, I'm thinking, made for no money, except the biggest money of all, which is time, right? So ultimately, by spending so much time on this, the director and the producer and Will, all these people, director Joe Saunders, producer Alex Greer, and then Will Cassett Smith, they gave up their time for this for 4 years. And I think ultimately, whether it's real or fake, I just really enjoyed it. And also the website, which I'm gonna make sure we link on our podcast descriptions. They have deleted scenes on their website, so you can go to and check out different scenes that were left out from the documentary. So to Eric's point, is it could have been a docu-series, but thank goodness this is just ultimately a 98-minute movie. But if you want to learn more about the Penny Black, just go to its website and check out some of the deleted scenes. And hopefully that website will ultimately answer a lot of viewers' questions whether it was real or fake. So hopefully that will be a living, breathing website moving forward.
This is a very good forgery. We'll call it that.
Yeah. So that is that is the Penny Black. Anything else you guys want to talk about regarding this movie? Anything other points, thoughts, Bruce, Eric?
Actually, like, again, I wasn't even thinking that this could possibly be a mockumentary or fake documentary or whatever you want to call it. But the more I'm thinking of it, because like while I was watching it, I was like, why is any of this even happening?
Well,
Because at least if it was me, you're going to take my book of stamps and you'll come back for it in 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, and I'll just put them away and forget about them until
sure.
like, and then 4 years goes by and it's like, what's this? It's like, oh yeah, dude left the stamps. I don't know, are these worth anything? Yeah, fuck it, he's not coming back, let's just sell them. And then that'd be the beginning and end of it for me anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Bruce, do you think I was out? I should was I right in calling out that maybe this movie is fake, and maybe I
No,
should have just.
I had the exact same thoughts, but and I hear what Eric's saying too. But I think that they try to explain that away because I think they suggest that they met him like the day after he got the book of stamps, and when he told them the story, they said, "Oh, we start filming you about this? Is really interesting." And supposedly they went the next day and started filming him, and then so it goes. And I think that I feel like even if it isn't real, that some of the things like that Arizona thing might be real. Like they found a real set of people who had some stolen, and I think they went there. And either way, I think they went there and they'll think those people were real. And I think that was just a surprise occurrence of how
I
that worked out.
think that maybe they nomad landed it a little bit.
A little bit, I think
Oh,
so.
so here's the thing.
Oh, very cool.
At the nickel, they had that bar rescue come by. One that is triple nickel. You probably find it on YouTube or whatever. You know, the producers come in probably a month, couple weeks before they actually shoot the thing, and they kind of talk about, you know, they interview everyone that works there and kind of get an idea of like what the storyline they want is. And I don't know about the other bars, but I know at the nickel, they're like, oh yeah, we could play this up, we could play this up, and I'm going to be this character, you know, like it was realistic, and it wasn't scripted as in bar rescue came in and said you're going to do this and you're going to do this, but everyone kind of knew what time it was and they knew what they were doing, so it was like, we're going to play this up a little bit. And like I wonder if maybe perhaps this is one of those things where maybe Roman's not in on it. The people in Arizona's not into it, but maybe Will is in on it.
It could have even been something
Yes.
as simple, and I don't want to give spoilers, but it could have been something as simple as the actual basic event occurred, but the other book didn't occur. If you
Oh,
catch my drift.
right. Right.
And that could have been a way to keep everybody that's not the main people being themselves and actually in the real situation, and letting all those, setting out the private investigator, doing all those things. But the one aspect of that other book might have not been real. So that could have caused a whole twist in it too.
The best lesson at all to learn about this, whether it's fake or not, just because it's in a documentary doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know what? The filmmakers.
Check your sources.
Yeah, right. No, the filmmakers, if they ever come out and saying this whole thing or most of it, like Bruce, is false, they could come out and say this is also a movie, a documentary about the veracity of documentaries, and they could have made a very salient point, right? Either way, this movie hits home.
Yeah.
Solid recommend for me. Solid, Bruce. Solid.
Yes. Solid.
Recommend. Eric Holmes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, surprising. I thought the Penny Black was I was going to actually apologize. That, oh, I'm sorry, guys. We have to cover this one movie because we need a movie to cover this week. So glad it was the Penny Black. And listeners, tell I'm probably tell Eric and Bruce are more likable than me. Tell them what you think of this movie, and tell us if you think this movie is all fake, all true, or maybe a little bit of both. Okay, so that's the Penny Black, available now on all digital platforms. Our second featured movie is a movie that we can't pronounce, but we're going to try to pronounce. I thought it was initially called Undine, but the way they pronounce her name is Undina.
Undine.
Wer will hier bleiben?
Das ganze Wochenende. Christoph wartet auf Undine.
Undine?
Ist mir runtergefallen. Das Bein ist abgebrochen, aber ich habe es wieder geklebt. Du hast gesagt, dass du mich liebst. Für immer. Das hat mich glücklich gemacht. So glücklich, wie ich noch nie glücklich war. Du kannst nicht gehen.
And Undina is based on I think a myth of a water nymph, Bruce Perky, sort of. I don't even know what it's based on mythology, okay? But about a woman and from the waters and everything like that. And there's something, and I don't, honestly, I don't even want to explain the myth because that might actually lead to the unfurling of the story. Just know that Undine or Undina, played by Paula Beer. Yeah, Beer is Beer. Paula Beer, she's fantastic in this movie. She is the lead character. She is the woman who might be a water nymph, but we meet her. She's actually not. We don't meet her as some kind of Daryl Hannah splash kind of character. No, we meet her in Germany, specifically in Berlin. She is a historian who essentially is sort of a historian who greets tourists, tourists who come into the country, who come into Berlin, or people around the area, and she teaches them about the history of Berlin through very elaborate conversations, monologues, and she has a huge space to work with because while she's telling these stories, people can actually look at the architectural plan, the plan of the city, the ins and outs of the history. So on one level, these extended historical monologues will go over the eyes, ears, hearts, and minds over most people. But however you feel about Undina, this has value added watches. So maybe the second or third time you watch it, you might just want to learn about the history of Berlin's city and architecture. If you're passionate about that, don't even pay attention to the story. Just listen to her monologues talking about Berlin. So that's one of the cool things about this. But ultimately, the entire story, I would just say it's a love triangle, but it's not as intricate as you think it is. It's a very simple story about Undina's love life and her relationship with I would say, guys, we'd call him a sort of a diver, with a diver who actually becomes enamored of her while he's actually, I believe, experiencing one of her talks. And that diver is played by, I believe, yes, Franz Rogowski. And you might know him if you've seen the director Christian Petzold's previous movie, Transit. Transit is a very atmospheric thriller slash drama that I really enjoyed. And Undina is also atmospheric, and it has a very select, I think, viewership in a good way. I think it's a very esoteric film, but I think a lot of people will really enjoy this movie. I remember Bruce Perky was saying that this is a total Greg film. Yes, Bruce, this is a total Greg film. Eric Holmes, Undina, I have a little bit of a fear regarding what you felt about this movie. What did your overall big picture take on Undina?
Well, first of all, I'm kind of I'd almost recommend I mean, I don't know if we want to give it away here, probably not, but if you don't know what Undina is, might be a good idea to Google it, and then it'd be the first thing that pops up. Look up what Undina is, because I think this is a movie, because it's was this German or French?
German.
Okay, German movie. I'm thinking that maybe people in Germany know what Undina is, much like we know what a werewolf is. So the movie doesn't have to explain to us that person turns into a werewolf when the moon comes out, full moon comes out. They don't have to explain to us silver bullets. We just get that because it's in our culture. I wonder how much of Undina is in German culture, to where, because they don't hold your hand and explain it.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they just assume you know. So it might not be a terrible idea to at least look a little bit of it up. At the same time, without knowing, you can follow this movie pretty good. It does that thing where I think the filmmakers know, and even though I don't understand, I understand the filmmakers do, so I just kind of go with it. And it's relatively easy to follow once you get into the rhythm of what it is. Undina explaining the history of Berlin's architecture was like, what the fuck is okay.
Am I in college right now? I felt like I was in college class, electric class. Yeah.
But then when they do those same scenes over later on, or not the same scenes, but kind of, they kind of, do the same thing every day. And so when they start doing it, seems to have more meaning to it. Maybe like it's the whole movie itself is almost like a double entendre. I don't know what that entendre is, but it seems like there's a double entendre in there somewhere. And then the ending of this movie, I fell in love with it. It was just one of those movies, it does that, kind of slowly slips into the supernatural or the fairy tale of what this is. And then it just ends in such like a really dark way, not like everybody dies, blah, blah, but it's like, I guess somber maybe. But yeah, this movie moved me in ways I wasn't expecting. And I kind of liked it. I didn't like the way I was feeling all the times watching it, but overall it was quite effective. And I think this was a good one. And he's not just a diver, but he is underwater welder. And
Thank you.
I do know how to weld. And I've even did stick welding before, not underwater because I'm not crazy, but yeah, watching those scenes, it was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's not bad to weld. That weld looks like shit, but whatever.
I agree with you, Eric Holmes. I was surprisingly moved by this film. And Bruce Perky, I'm going to throw it to you. Were you surprisingly moved by this film as well? Did it grip you, or did you feel distanced by, I guess, the esoteric narrative?
I thought it was good. I would definitely recommend it. I didn't quite go to the extent that I felt it could have gone for me. I actually agree wholeheartedly with what Eric said too. I don't think that there's any detriment to knowing the mythology of this. I didn't until I went about halfway through and looked it up. And then I kind of was like, oh, okay. Some of those, because there's things that are happening throughout that kind of seem symbolic. And you're like, but what is that supposed to mean? It's supposed to mean something, and you're not like getting what it is. At least I wasn't. and it helped me to kind of have that framework. Kind of, and it isn't the story of Cinderella, but it's kind of like you have a movie called Cinderella, right? But it was like modern times and very urban. You'd be like, okay, Cinderella in urban times. I understand this. And I feel like Eric's probably right. And people that know that mythology or that what that is about, maybe in Germany or Europe or wherever, kind of go in off the bat with that framework. So they're fitting this modern story into that framework, which I think is helpful. The other thing that I kept thinking of, and that's why I thought of you, Greg, is I kept thinking of Vertigo. I
Mm,
thought of Vertigo a lot with this movie because this movie, not the story isn't Vertigo, so don't get yourselves twisted on that, guys. But in the aspect of this is really going for and hits it mostly going for this kind of haunted grasping for love in
yeah.
these characters, and it keeps doing this thing that's for me was very Vertigo-esque. That it will repeat scenes. Like there's a scene where you're walking around the edge of a wall to see an outside cafe and it repeats that view. There's multiple scenes where you repeat a view, but the context has changed or the viewer has changed or what they're viewing has changed. And I think that kind of also speaks to what Eric was saying, where as things happened later in the movie that had happened earlier, they kind of build meaning. They kind of have an emotional meaning because you've had the earlier version to kind of give you context. So I think all that stuff works really well. It didn't quite push up over the edge, but it was pretty close. Oh, and last thing I wanted to say, Franz, if he is not the German Joaquin Phoenix,
Right.
I don't know who is.
Well, that's right. Like we mentioned Franz Rogowski. He's just one of those actors, and it's rare. I don't know if you guys agree with me. It's you just put him, and it's one of those actors you just put him or her in the scene, and whatever. You'll just follow them sitting down, looking into space, and you're transfixed. Whereas most people, you're going, okay, we're wasting time here. Let's cut to the next scene. But guys like that, you're just really into, and he's the lead in Transit, and
Mm.
Transit has that very languorous type of pacing to it, and it wouldn't work if it didn't have someone like that version of Joaquin Phoenix as a lead. So
And
agree, yeah,
yeah, and last thing I wanted to say is, and I feel like their chemistry is really good. Like there's moments in here where they're just holding each other, like you can see them kind of against each other's necks, and they're either like kissing or they're just like talking to. You get that feeling like that they need each other,
right.
and I think that for a movie like this is super important because if you don't have that, you don't have anything in this movie. You've got to have that.
This was definitely one of those love stories where I wanted the two characters together. Like usually I'm like, oh, I hope they get together because that's what's supposed to happen in the plot. But this one I was like, no, these two need to like it's palpable. And which is also kind of weird given what Undina, like what her actual motivation is for wanting to be together is not entirely pure.
Right. Yeah.
There was also something kind of towards the end that confused me, and it sucks because I really can't even explain it here. But there's
Right.
someone's talking to someone, and there's a discrepancy on whether they did or not. Maybe
Right.
we'd have to talk off air or something. But I
That's
really
yeah.
want to know if you guys know what that's all about because that part when it was a cool scene, and it definitely intrigued me. But that thing went right over my head. I'm like, what the fuck's going on there?
Well, that went right over my head too, and I don't know, Bruce, if you
Oh,
agree.
okay.
There's no way to explain it except that there are two words: Rod Serling, three words:
Yeah.
Twilight Zone. Okay.
I could see this getting a real strong cult following. It has that kind of mysterious aspect that I think people who get into it, like I thought it was definitely good. People who get into it will really get into all the little details. I mean, there's like a diving a diver figurine that breaks its leg and they'll get into like that thing
Right.
being repaired and what that means. There's lots of there's a stain on a wall. There's all kinds of stuff that I could see people like just getting very nerdy about and causing it to have some real strong ongoing cult status for
Is
people.
that like
I agree with
David
that. Yeah.
Lynch is a bad example because his moves are weird, and this isn't really that weird. It's pretty straightforward for the most part. But yeah, I think this movie has one of those things like you could probably watch this 5 times, and the fifth time you'd be like, "Oh, that's what that means." I think this
Yeah.
like it doesn't seem like that at first glance, but after watching it and thinking about it, I'm like, I bet if I watch this movie a bunch more times, I would just like pick up on so many little details. It just went right over my head the first 10 times I watched this.
Well, going back to what Bruce Perky was saying about how this movie reminded him of Vertigo, and of course, Vertigo's score was scored by Bernard Herrmann. And I was wondering, actually, in the opening moments, the opening of Undina, just absolutely, I'm sure it hooked both of you as well. It hooks you in right from the opening moments because there's not too much of a score, and then when the score kicks in, it grabs you. And I'm thinking, what's the composer who's doing this classical music? Is it like a Hans Zimmer type? This is how much of a class a that ignoramus I am. No, there is no real living composer who did the music for this. It is this dude I'm not very well versed with, Johann Sebastian Bach, the classical composer, and that is Adagio, what is it? Concerto in D minor. So going back to Bruce's theme of a lot of things repeating themselves, this may irritate you or this may draw you in. Expect a lot of Bach's concerto in D minor to actually repeat itself throughout various sections of the movie. To the point, again, I was loving it. Maybe a few people will say, okay, enough already with Bach, but it really adds to the whole unpacking. Eric Holmes was saying that, it seems like a straight ahead thing, but look, here we are. We're all unpacking it. And like Eric was saying, maybe by the fourth or fifth time you're seeing this, maybe it's a lot weirder than you initially thought on the first and even second viewing. So yeah, and we even talked about the history of Berlin. There's a lot of stuff to unpack with Undina. And what's also interesting? I don't know if you guys felt this, but the director Christian Petzold, he had all these really cool following shots. The locations it's beautiful to look at. And I was just thinking, man, this is such a personal movie, and there's a lot of themes behind it. But can you imagine this guy just doing a straight up genre film? Whether it's
Oh yeah,
oh
good.
right, that
Like
would be
a straight on mystery or a thriller. I could
or
totally see that.
or a gritty crime thriller,
Mm-hmm.
mystery thriller. He would kill it. But he decides to do something like Undina. So credit to him. Just a
Yeah.
personal movie, and he has all of the mise en scène. He has all of the tricks, right? And hey, he could do a sea movie, an ocean film, right? An underwater. Can't he do an underwater alien film? Eric, what do you think of that? Underwater alien film?
I mean, if we're playing what I wish he would do, like
Yeah, okay, here we go.
based on stuff, the original story of Frankenstein, not the movie, but like the actual Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, because Kenneth Branagh tried it, and Frank Darabont wrote the script. Kenneth Branagh, tortured it and whatever.
Kenneth Branagh's it.
Yeah, but I could see this this director he kind of has a way of like injecting sorrow without, look at how sorrowful it is. It's kind of under, and there's a lot of that in the original Frankenstein book. I think he could do a great adaptation of that if that's something they wanted to do.
Okay. Yeah, like there's that kind of a haunted feel to this, right? Like, and it's not really super easy to nail down how it gets there. Like, it doesn't put a bunch of spooky things in there, it's just haunted and like melancholy, like you say. Yeah.
Yeah, without being saccharine. Very good, Eric. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Undina. We again another movie. Oh, and by the way, a little bit of thing. I've always said how Eric Holmes and Bruce Perky are always nicer than me. Notice how they never defend me, because I'm just weaving the truth. I'm telling the truth. Yesterday we received the screener to IFC Films. We were supposed to get it on Friday, but due to my ridiculousness, I actually asked it on the midnight hour on Friday. We did not get it until Tuesday, which was earlier in the week. We're taping now on Wednesday night. I told them, hey, don't even worry about watching Undina. We'll just do The Penny Black. But Eric Holmes and Bruce said, no, we'll just watch it. Midnight hour. They just decided to stomach it. So basically, they're the leaders. I would not have covered it because I'm too lazy. Please thank Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes for actually being real podcasters and making me see Undina. It was a very pleasurable experience. Were you guys actually worried that this movie might suck? Because I thought it was going to suck. Oh, okay.
I had no idea what it was going to be until I put it on, and then I was like just kind of confused until I wasn't, and then I was like, I kind of like this a lot. So
okay, strong recommendation for me. Bruce Perky, solid recommendation for you. And good. Solid for you, Eric. Solid. Okay, solid. Okay, so all solids for us, and that is Undina. That is our second and final featured review for this week. And Undina opens June 4th in theaters and on digital and VOD platforms. So, listeners, if any of you still love staying at home like me, I'm still not going to theaters for a little bit of a spell. Check it out on digital and VOD. But if you're more outgoing like Eric Holmes and Bruce Perky, check it out also in theaters. So those are our two big movies. We are doing our weekly recommends. Bruce Perky, A Quiet Place Part 2. Eric Holmes, I know you're going to watch that very, very soon, maybe even this weekend. Did the movie live up to its original?
I would say, yeah, right out the gate, I would say yes, it does. So if you like the original A Quiet Place, I think you'll like this movie. I think it's a solid sequel. It's a little different in style. So I would say that the original A Quiet Place, it's a lot more building up the tension until you finally get some monster stuff towards the end. This has a lot more monster stuff throughout. So if you felt like maybe the first one held back a little bit too much for you, you might like this even better. If you thought the first one was just perfect, this one might be a slight downgrade for you, but not much. Basic concept. I saw it at the theater today, by the way, with my oldest son, and he liked it quite a bit too. 20 people in the theater, just Wednesday. So, so the basic concept, if you've seen the other one, I'm not going to spoil it, but let's just say this one has a little mini pre-title sequence, about a 10-minute sequence that says day one, and you get to see the beginning of what happened. And then after the titles, we come back to directly after where the last movie ended and basically continue that story. I'm not going to get into too many of the details of it because it's a monster movie, right? So if you go in for a monster movie where you don't want to make noise or you're going to cause the monsters to get you, this movie does a lot of that. As far as actors, you have Emily Blunt back. You have Cillian Murphy. So if you haven't seen him lately, he plays a big role in this, and he does a really good job. And the kids are back in this, and they're just as good as they were before. There are a few preposterous moments where you're like, why is that person doing that? And there's a few of those, but not too bad. And this definitely doesn't go down into the territory that we complained about a few weeks ago with another movie, which we won't talk about. But
Oh, mention that again.
no, I'd not say anything.
Wait, no,
Didn't say anything.
We need to mention it every week, by the way. We do need
Just keep
that
giving
is a
them plugs.
reference to Zack Snyder. Every single our mission statement is to mention the Zack Snyder and his oeuvre every single wait, Eric Holmes, am I right? Was that our mission statement for Find Your Film or no?
He already owes me a punch in the face. I'm not looking to get a second one because he's pretty yoked.
Okay. Yeah, he is pretty yoked. Yeah, he beat
So
us up.
it's not a long movie. This movie, I didn't check the time on it, but I couldn't have clocked in more than an hour and maybe 35, 40 minutes. It wasn't super duper long. It has a basic point. Oh, one thing this movie does really great too. So it has some really good monster set pieces, what you'd expect for a movie like this. But what it does really good, it does the preposterous thing that a lot of these movies do, where it splits up your characters, kind of Scooby-Doo style. I'm going to go here, you're going to go here, I'm going to go there. And it does that, which is really good. In the fact that what they'll do is they'll have 3 tense scenes. At one point they have 3, at another point they have 2 tense scenes all building at the same time. So you're going back and forth between these scenes, so that essentially you have like 3 set pieces, 3 action, scary, tense set pieces all culminating together, and you'll go back and forth between the 3 of them. And that really added to me a lot of fun into this movie. It's just a really good solid monster movie. Like I said, if you like the previous one, this is just more good stuff. It doesn't go down, it doesn't overblow it to the point that some sequels do. It just gives you more of a solid story, solid monster movie.
Do you see another installment coming? Is this going to be a slew of a franchise kind of thing?
It could. I mean, it isn't like the end of the World of Worlds where I know that's not a spoiler, but every alien isn't lying dead in the whole world by the end of this movie. So they could do it. I don't think they need to. This could be the end. They could wrap it up right here and it'll be totally fine. If they want to do another one, I mean, well, as we know, third sequels are always the best. So they probably should do a third one, right, Eric?
A little
Superman 3, Godfather 3, God willing, Gremlins 3. The third one's always the best one.
So Eric, you're going to be watching A Quiet Place Part 2 maybe this weekend. Is that what you're going to do? What are you excited about? Did you like the first one as much as Bruce did? And
The weird thing about the first one is that it had so many stupid things in it that normally any other movie would be a deal breaker, and I don't know why it wasn't for me for the first one. So I'm kind of expecting some of that in this one, but
yes.
I like the first one, and I definitely liked watching it in the theater. I don't know, did it have that? I mean, So when I saw A Quiet Place 1, the theater was packed, and they're just not that way right now. Even if everyone does go out, they got the limited seating. But Bruce, did you get the same deal that you might have got with Quiet Place 1, where people start eating their Twizzlers and realize, I
Yeah.
just need to put this bag down, it's making too much noise?
Yeah, there's definitely some moments like that, and you will be exactly. This worked exactly the same way. There's a couple of things in here that you're like, that's so stupid. There's one point where the boy goes, I'm not gonna say what he does. He goes somewhere and does something. You're like, why is he doing that? Other than the script told him to do that, But I think that the actual editing and the care in the way the tense scenes play out just lets you forgive it, because it's just entertaining. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, it's a stupid monster movie. They're gonna do stupid things because it's a stupid monster movie, But I think almost it's probably less stupid stuff, I think, in this one in some ways, and it's a little more expansive too. You get to see a little more of the apocalyptic world, which is kind of nice. You get out of that little, because the other one was pretty much just in that farmhouse almost the whole time. This one definitely goes further away, which is kind of, I enjoy an apocalyptic thing, to see a little more of that world. So yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. And yes, everyone's like crunching their stuff. It's
Okay, so
it's good.
that's A Quiet Place. What, part 2? A Quiet Place 2 is currently out now in theaters. Bruce, before we get to Eric Holmes, do you have one more recommendation that you want to throw out there, or?
I think I'll just tease one. I'm probably next week we'll talk about at least one of them. If I talk about two, one of them will probably be Bo Burnham's Inside, which just got released on Netflix. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and it's pretty amazing. So
And we haven't done a director spotlight in a spell. That is, I'm going to put
yes.
that all on me, because I'm actually trying to revamp my website, Deepest Dream, and I'm going to actually start putting the archives now onto that site. I actually have a summer break in about 2 weeks. So once that starts, all of that archiving will finally, after a full year of promises, will begin. Well, now that said, that's why we've been procrastinating. I've been holding it back. But once we get it cleared, Bruce Perky, in about a week or in change, what can we
Mhm.
expect as far as director spotlight goes?
Well, I'm gonna suggest we do Peter Strickland, and the reason I'm doing that is I think it's really fun when we do some of the old rediscover or discover older directors, and we've done things like Maya Deren, like really obscure older directors. But I also like to occasionally feature a director that's maybe up and coming now and doing really interesting work, even if they're not a classic director yet. Maybe they will be. So it's kind of fun to have someone like that also, so that if we do end up liking them, you're looking forward to another movie from them and that can be coming out. So Peter Strickland, we're going to do In Fabric, and we're going to do The Duke of Burgundy. Those are both available. You can stream them, I think, for rent. Maybe one of them. I think In Fabric might be available free to stream in a couple places too. He also did Barbarian Sound System, which I've seen a long time ago and want to revisit at some point. And he did another movie called Catalan Varga, which I've not seen. Really interesting British director. These are very acquired tastes and very unusual films. I would probably not suggest it to Angie Clark. I'm just going to say that out of the
I'm not gonna
gate.
suggest it to Angie Clark. Okay, very
May not be
cool.
for her.
May not be for Angie. Yeah, that's Angie Clark. Definitely listen to our episode with Angie, where we actually do a deep dive on the Elia Kazan film Wild River. What a great
Yes.
choice from Angie Clark, a friend of the show, our friend, period. Now, yeah. So has Strickland, has he done a classic, you think, out of those two movies where,
I
in your
think Duke
opinion?
of Burgundy, Duke and Burgundy is a pretty great film all the way through. And I think it has a soundtrack that, if nothing else, I think you especially, Greg, but I think it's an amazing soundtrack. In Fabric is 2/3 fucking fantastic and 1/3 really weird. It makes a turn at about the 2/3 mark. You'll be like, what? Why did we do that? But it's so interesting and so odd, and it has such strong giallo vibes that I think that, if nothing else, you're gonna now be prepared to either enjoy it or hate it based on all your giallo experience now. So
Oh, very cool. Okay, so
yeah.
Strickland will be covering him and his work in Fabric and the Duke of Burgundy, right?
Mhm.
In a week and a half. Okay, so that's really cool. Eric Holmes, let's get to your recommendations for this week.
All right. Well, I saw a movie on Netflix. It's a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb. So already we're starting off great.
Okay. Is that a Penny Black reference? Is that true? Is that a true reference? Is that a true rating, or did you just make that up, right? Just for the entertainment of it all.
Where is it?
I
Here we
think he
go.
has a news alert in his phone that makes it come up that way.
Oh, very good. How dare
6.9 out of 10.
Okay, very good. How dare I Penny Black you? You're correct. Eric Holmes is the soothsayer. Go ahead.
It's okay. IMDb calls this a 2020 release. And it may have been on. I don't know. I just found it this week, so I watched it, and it's called Black Holes: The Edge of All We Know. You may remember not long ago, the world was presented with a orange yellowish picture and a lot of black of our first sight of a black hole. We finally saw a black hole. You may have read in the news about how they achieved that blurry picture. And this is a documentary of exactly that. The Event Horizon Telescope. There's telescopes, don't remember how many of them. There's a bunch of telescopes all over the Earth, different teams working the telescopes and working in tandem to all get a picture of a black hole. And it just kind of a soup to nuts sort of thing of what it takes and how extremely difficult, and how, I mean, we throw genius around when it comes to art, but the stuff that these scientists go through to look at a picture of a thing that doesn't emit light. I mean, that's and this is something we've never seen and only know of theoretically, like, we think it might be there, and it's 200 some million light years away, and we're on this little blue marble, and hopefully we got a bunch of even tinier little pieces of glass that can hopefully pick up something that maybe possibly if conditions are all perfect, and then we can work together and do this, maybe possibly we could see something. And spoiler alert, we did. They saw something. But this is not so much what's the saying? It's the journey. It's not this isn't the destination. We know how this ends. They got a picture of a black hole. This is the journey of how they got there. And for someone like me, this is entirely just right up my alley. Like I'm just absolutely interested in this. For other people, maybe not. But if you're into stuff like this, the weird thing about this, though, like as a documentary, because this does have to, I think this knows its audience, so it kind of dumbs some things down. So it's not constantly talking over your head, which it very easily could do. It dumbs it down enough, not like, okay, here we're going to hold your hand and we're going to grab the crayon and now we're going to draw a little bear. You like bears, right? It's not quite like that, but it makes it easy to follow. And also Stephen Hawking is presented quite a bit in this. And actually watching this, because I remember watching The Theory of Everything and hating that movie because I wanted to watch a movie about Stephen Hawking doing what he's most known for. Yeah. I want to watch Stephen Hawking work. And Theory of Everything was a story about Stephen Hawking's love life, the thing I'm least interested about in Stephen Hawking. This was the Stephen Hawking documentary I wanted, and it's not even a Stephen Hawking documentary.
That's awesome.
And did you say it also had Sam Neill in the Event Horizon, like to go out there and get the pictures of it, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing movie.
Oh, and
that's a plug for Event Horizon, available on Blu-ray and DVD. Please hit us up on Amazon Associates. So
I was thinking of, and you guys can help me out because so at the end of this song, one of the scientists is listening to Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the Hawaiian version of it, the haunting version, version I like anyway.
It's a great one.
But we saw another movie with Somewhere Over the Rainbow. At least I did, and I can't remember. Oh, never mind. We haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah. Well, that movie has to deal with an organ.
Remember that
organs,
Somewhere Over the Rainbow plays at the end of this movie.
That movie has to do with an organ player and organs and acid and a lot of blood. So we're gonna get to that in a second. A little teaser.
I fucked up.
No, you didn't F up. You didn't F up. Speaking of F ups, yes, the documentary features Stephen Hawking, Shep. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Shep Dolman and the Event Horizon Telescope team. The
Larry
reason why I
Moe
know
and Shep were in this. Oh
You're
my
very good.
god, this
Bruce
movie is
Perky.
better and better.
Bruce, see, we can't talk science around Bruce because then he'll have jokes. He'll have jokes about it. Also, the Event Horizon Telescope team, it does not include Sam Neill from Event Horizon.
Oh, wise guy, eh?
Wise guy. The reason why I know this is Black Hole is the edge of all we know. It's because a wonderful publicist who I should have gotten back to. I just opened up an email from February 5th pitching the Black Hole is the edge of all we know and asking if we would be interested in an interview with the director or scientist Katie Bowman. So sorry, Eric. Speaking of F ups, so
I found it. I found it regardless.
yeah, I'm glad that you found it, Eric Holmes. But like you said, it's currently streaming on Netflix. Is that where you got it? Is that how you got it? Okay, good.
And there's also another thing. So the very first image you see is like a space, just a bunch of stars, and then you see like a air quotes black hole. It's just basically a black circle in front of stars, so you can barely see it. If you know anything about black holes, like I'm watching it go, that's fucking bullshit. Where's the gravitational lensing? Blah blah blah, this and that. But then it pans back, and the black hole is the pupil of the eye, and then that's it's basically we're trying to see the black hole, and the thing is we can't see the black hole because the light doesn't come from it. We can see the event horizon or the shadow of the event horizon. Everything we know is in the black hole, but we can only see the edge of all we know.
Oh, interesting.
Double entendres in the title.
Very good.
At first I was like, this is stupid. And then I thought about it. And then it was like, oh, you clever monkeys, you.
All right, folks, if you want to get confused for about 3 hours, watch Undine and then watch Black Holes, The Edge of All We Know, and you will be a confused mess by the end of it, or maybe you'll be smarter like Eric Holmes. So that is it. That is our movies for this week, I believe, because we're going to wrap it up. We're going to bring out the rear with What's in the Box. Bruce Perky's What's in the Box. You know what? Even before we get to the abominable Dr. Phibes, Bruce, you also watched Coco. Which one should we tackle first?
Yeah.
Do we do Coco or do we
Coco first, really quick?
Okay, Coco really quick. Okay.
Yeah. So Coco is on Disney Plus. I think this was, I don't know if I know it. Was it Matt Stillman's?
I believe it was Matt Stillman's pick. Yeah.
Matt Stillman. Okay. And he had it for you to watch because you don't usually watch very many cartoons, but you've seen this animated movie.
And I did get teary. I got teary-eyed by the end.
Yeah. So 2017, directed by Lee Unkrich and Adrian Molina. Boy, this is actually kind of a complicated plot. So I'll just give you the basic idea is that you have a little boy of a long family, and the family, because the great grandfather had left to go become a famous musician, the family basically has banned all music. They don't listen to music. They don't play music. Music is verboten. And the littlest boy, Miguel, he's the main guy in this story. He's the youngest great grandchild, and he secretly loves music, and he secretly idolizes the man who went off and became famous from their family, and he kind of wants to be musical and all this stuff. And through a series of events on the Day of the Dead, he ends up in the land of the dead, and probably, what do you say, 2/3 or more of this movie is in the land of the dead, and there's a whole series of plot developments that occurred. I can't even go through them all. I was very, very pleasantly surprised by how intricate and interesting the actual story was. There's actual twists, there's intrigue, there's drama, but even more so, the look and the world building that goes into the land of the dead and the rules of the land of the dead and what happens there, and who can come over and when, and they can come back to the living, and if they're allowed back to the living. It's a ton of fun. It's really dazzlingly beautiful. The design of everything is really wonderful. And like you said, it does the emotional job that like Pixar movies generally can do. And I believe this is a Pixar movie. It's really good. It's
the music's fantastic. I think the music is very, very good. And it's not just Remember Me. It's the whole bunch, the whole flavor of it. You really feel, I mean, I'm not a huge animation guy, and I was really into it. I was really into the whole thing.
And it does a thing that you rarely see. I mean, usually in movies, when the fingers are playing guitar with actual live human beings, they're not doing it right. But from what I could tell, these cartoon fingers were doing it right. So that was pretty impressive too.
Do you like the way it dealt with death as well? I mean, just for kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It deals with it. It doesn't sugarcoat death, and it doesn't make it like nothing to worry about, but it also doesn't make it like super duper sad. It actually really grounds it, I think. And it creates this whole mythology around it too, which is really interesting and unusual. So I loved it.
Great. Yeah. Eric Holmes, what are you doing?
First of all, I love Coco, but I just noticed I just noticed something that maybe I shouldn't say out loud, but I'm going to anyway.
Oh no.
So you got a movie like Coco, which is good at being diverse, bringing certain groups of people that aren't normally in movies, and that's great. As does Soul, and both movies kill off the main character almost immediately.
That's not a spoiler, folks. Not a spoiler. That's the premise of both movies.
But they have adventures in the afterlife, so that's fun. But yeah, I just saw that and it's like,
maybe we can have one where they don't die in the first 5 minutes.
How about that?
That is, we'll take it up with Pixar.
Let's have Pixar have like a LGBTQ main character, but let's not kill him off like within the first 10 minutes if that's at all possible.
Very good point. Yeah, and I guess you give him credit with Soul and Coco, and even years ago with The Lion King. There's at least the topic of death and the circle of life and everything is broached. So I don't know. So that's a cool thing. That's a very, very cool thing. You know what also talks about death is the Abominable Dr. Phibes. Made in 1971, it was released May 18th, 1971. Bruce, I'm going to let you take this in a second. It's 94 minutes. It's directed by this guy named Robert Fuest, Fuest. I had no idea who the bleeping bleep this guy was. All I know is he directed Vincent Price and Joseph Cotton in a movie. That is some kind of bleeping pairing, and I am so glad that I was actually able to see that pairing work in its full glory. And I'm gonna get to you, Bruce, in a second. I'm just gonna say the IMDb summary of the plot. Quote, a doctor, scientist, organist, and biblical scholar, Anton Phibes, played by Vincent Price, seeks revenge on the 9 doctors he considers responsible for his wife's death. There, that's the IMDb summary. We can work it off that way. I'm going to give my reactions on this in a second. Bruce, why was this movie a selection for you? Why did you want me and Eric to see it?
Well, this has been kind of a lifelong favorite of mine. I watched this, God knows how long ago, like probably in the late 70s or early 80s on some, midnight marquee horror, channel. But I've seen it a few times in my life. And when it got brought up recently, I don't know how it got brought up recently on the page, on our cinematics page there, go join the group, cinematic group. It's really fun. I was surprised by how many people had not even heard of it, especially people that are really cinephiles. And I was like, well, if they haven't heard of it, then some people need to check this out. Because if nothing else, even if this isn't your style of movie, it's really stylish and really unusual. And it's something that should at least be in your radar. Basic thing to note about this. So you talk about him having revenge. I think it goes about 30 minutes before you even hear Vincent Price speak. As he does speak.
Does he speak?
Sort of.
VO.
And it might even be 10 or 15 minutes before anyone speaks. And the thing that you really have to understand about this movie is it's kind of like 7 deadly sins kind of a thing. Like he does like the plagues, Pharaoh's plagues to kill all these doctors. And it's done in a semi-humorous way. It's done in very interesting and stylishly. There's some stuff here that's even almost Saw-like in the way that it progresses these traps that he sets up. But most importantly, the lair of Dr. Phibes is, to me, something glorious. It's this Art Deco wind-up band, weird set, and he is almost like, I don't know, like Phantom of the Opera or something. It's very, very...
How dare you?
Yeah.
He's like Phantom of the Paradise.
Yes, it actually is closer to Phantom of the Paradise. That's true. And we can't go any further without mentioning that his assistant, Volnavia, played by Virginia North, is spectacular. I love the combination of her and Vincent Price in this movie. And I'll let you guys say what you think. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I love this movie. And I watched it with my son. I thought he's going to probably hate it. You know, this is from the 70s and he's from this era. And he actually really enjoyed it. And he really liked Villeneuve too.
This movie is exactly 7 if John Doe was Mr. Freeze trying to get revenge on his wife's death by using traps from Saw. Like the fact that like Mr. Freeze, well, Mr. Freeze probably came out before this, but the character anyway, but the 7 and Saw have to be so heavily inspired by this because they pretty much rip off Dr. Phibes almost not beat for beat, but I mean, it's, you know, you do the elevator pitch for Dr. Phibes and someone didn't know, they'd be like, oh, that's 7. No, it's not 7. Saw? No. Dr. Phibes? Oh, what's that? And the fact that Vincent Price doesn't talk really, because he uses I kind of wish he didn't talk at all in this. That would have just really set it over the top for me. And because especially since he was such a big star back then, and having a completely silent role would have been sweet. This is. I'm actually kind of sad this got away from me for as long as it did. But this movie is pretty freaking fantastic across the board. You know, there's some spots here and there that are kind of campy-ish, probably, you know, just because of the technology of the day trying to do the effects that they do. But this is a really good movie. And I was thinking it would be kind of ripe for a remake these days, but they already did it twice in 7 and Saw, so good job.
Yeah, the Abominable Dr. Phibes. One of the things that absolutely is, it's a big, I like to say, having the rug pulled out from you, because this whole movie, that's what it does. The entire movie plays tricks on you the whole time. The opening is just right out of, you don't know what the heck. You're thinking to yourself, what, who, why are they playing music? Who are these animated things playing? What's this band? What is going on? For the first 5 to 7 minutes, you're probably clueless. And ultimately, this narrative, without giving too much away, we mentioned Joseph Cotton. He plays the doctor, the main person that Dr. Phibes is going after. So it's a kind of a Dr. Phibes and Joseph Cotton as the doctor. What's his doctor's name? Dr. Vesalius.
Yes.
It's a doctor on doctor kind of crime. You're waiting for that final showdown. All that said, Bruce, who's the main character in the movie?
For me, it's Villeneuve.
Okay, that is Bruce channeling his inner man, inner child. Yes, because yes, she is very beautiful. She's very magnetic. No, the main character is Peter Jeffrey. We don't even know who Peter Jeffrey is.
Oh, yeah.
He plays Detective Inspector Trout. This whole movie is Detective Inspector Trout. Eric Holmes mentioned Saw. That's one of those things where you go, oh, Saw, is it really about the killer? Is it really about the themes? No, sometimes the ultimate character is probably the protagonist, the lead, is sometimes the person you forget the most. And by the end of the movie, you're going to forget that Detective Inspector Trout, played by Peter Jeffrey, convincingly, he's very funny, by the way, because he's a little bit bumbling. He does a good job. He's very brave, but he does have his bumbles. He's the main character. He's the main guy. He's the anchor of the entire narrative. That said, whenever I was going to say Peter Cushing, how can I? That's sacrilege. Vincent Price is fantastic in this movie with having really nothing to say, but whatever he does say, whether it's through that like voice box that's just kind of attached to his thing, I'm gonna peacefully disagree with you, Eric Holmes. I loved actually having him speak, because whatever comes out of his mouth is just ridiculous monologues about love and
nine shall die. Nine.
It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous stuff coming out of his mouth. And yeah, Vincent Price just really nails it. So this is, to me, a near perfect movie. What's a little bit frustrating for me is that director Robert Fust, or I've looked at his body of work and I definitely want to see more of his stuff. He should have, just based on what he pulled off with this movie. And I know there's a sequel. I'm sure you've already seen the sequel, Bruce Perky, but this director showed he has a lot of skill. And if I could turn back time, I would give this guy just tentpole films. He just has this this movie is so out there, and it just nails all of its out there moments. In my opinion, it does get campy, but even in its campy moments, I
Oh,
was never lost me. Eric,
the movie's also funny and not like laughing
Yeah.
at it because it's so bad. Like it actually has legitimate humor to it,
it's
and
clever. It's there's some
yeah,
moments that are very clever. Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of like the tone goes all over the place, but it does that to bring up Gremlins again. The when it's trying to nail comedy, it nails it. When it's trying to nail horror, it nails it. When it's trying to nail mystery, it nails it. When it's trying to nail musical, it nails that too. Like it's almost like
You're right.
everything it tries, it does it well, and
Mhm.
everything kind of slips into each other and just works. Like on paper, this movie should just be a hot mess and one of the worst movies ever. It is not. It's
Not even close.
almost masterful, really.
It's very masterful. And you know what? You talked about like even just the comedy or some of those genius places. I never expected the comedy to arise from moments that are on a normal movie would be a throwaway line. It's just because ultimately this ends up being almost like a procedural because they're
Yeah.
following, right? But during the moments when you think, okay, it's okay to actually breathe and say stupid lines that just forward the plot. Nope. The script injects some comedic moments between incidental characters that have nothing to do with Cotton or Price. So there's just comedy amongst a lot of the ensemble, and I really love that. Was just pretty much a chef's kiss to me because a lot of unexpected genius in places that you never just thought it'd be. So Bruce, going back to you, just final thoughts on Dr.
Oh, I
Phibes.
just was gonna say it's funny you mentioned Peter Cushing because I think originally they wanted Dr. Vesalius to be played by Peter Cushing. Like that's who
Oh,
they wanted, but he wasn't able to do it. So they got Joseph Cotton. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think one of the other things that I kind of always strikes me when I watch this, every time I watch it, I catch different things and I love it. This is one of those comfort movies for me, probably partially nostalgia, but I think it also like some of those moments where you're just sitting there listening to the music and they're just sitting there in their lair is just so almost relaxing. But I also love how every time they go to do another murder, I don't know how it struck you guys, but each time they go to do it, you're like, okay, what is he up to? What is he doing? Like every time there's a mystery to what he's going to do. So you want to get the reveal of like what curse is being played and how he's playing it out. There's one point where they stop a car on the side of the road and you see him pull this machine, this weird silver machine out of his car. And you're like, what is that? So there's an element of that kind of propels it forward, I think, in a lot of ways.
and it's very perverse because you're pulling for the death. That's
Yeah,
very
you are
perverse.
totally.
It's a perverse entertainment, but it's a guilty pleasure, and each death is done perfectly.
I,
Yes.
I don't know if it'll be good or not, but I'm curious to watch the sequel to this, if only to see if he drinks from his neck again.
Yeah. The sequel, I'll just say the sequel is not near as good, but it is entertaining. It has entertaining moments for sure. I won't tell you how it goes.
Is there a neck drink scene? That's all I want to know.
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it. I believe there is a neck drink scene. It doesn't
Sweet soul.
quite have the glorious style of this one, but once again, this is not available to stream like hardly anywhere.
Oh, unbelievable. And
And
here's
this old DVD that I got with the split is like 50 or 60 bucks if you want to go buy it.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah. So, hey, by the way, the Joseph Cotton character, the doctor, I mean, it could have been just your average a-hole doctor, but not gonna give too much away, but it's actually a layered character. You're actually conflicted whether you want him to be killed by the end. You're actually
Yeah.
conflicted.
And say what
Right?
you will, but that final trap is absolutely Saw.
Oh, right.
Absolutely Saw. It is like Eric is nodding his head. He agrees absolutely too. It's yeah. So look up this movie. There are places to find it. I'm not going to say exactly where, but you can figure it out. You're smart.
Yeah, you can look, folks. I mean, YouTube doesn't sponsor us. Go to YouTube, type in the Abominable Dr. Phibes. There are going to be, I think Bruce sent me some really good transfers. You can always email bruceperky@gmail.com. I'm gonna out you, Bruce. But anyways, don't go through Bruce for that. Just go to YouTube, go find it, go find a nice transfer. As of this recording, it's available. I guess like Eric, what you've always been passionate about, it's sort of a fair use kind of video. So it's out now on YouTube. You can stream it for free.
Can't get it anywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I mean, honestly, that sucks because the transfer for you, Bruce, is it okay on DVD? It's probably,
It's okay.
wonder.
I would definitely upgrade this though to a Blu-ray or something because I think it looks the scenes, especially in their lair and stuff, are so beautiful. Like I want to see it in all of its glory. You know.
I didn't check, but like this isn't on Shutter because this is totally a Shutter movie.
Right?
Like if there ever was one, this is the Shutter movie.
Not currently. I bet you it'll get on there though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Bruce to finally he's gonna pick what's in the box. What's in the bleeping box?
What's in the box, Bruce?
Very good.
9. What? 9. I.
Undine! Undine!
Gonna terrorize.
Oh, by the
y'all's
way,
neighborhood.
somewhere over the rainbow, somewhere over
Oh,
the
yeah.
rainbow, over the rainbow, and one for my baby, one for the road. If you like both songs, they are featured
Yeah.
in all its glory in the Abominable Dr.
Yes.
Phibes.
Yeah, so
Sam up
yeah,
so
yeah, that's what I was getting at with the Black Hole's Edge of All We Know. They played Somewhere of the Rainbow at the end of that, and I watched that after watching Dr. Phibes, and I was like,
That is weird.
wow, isn't that
Trippy.
weird? It's just weird when things come together like that.
All right.
Yes.
This week's What's in the Box is
A big catfish? That's an Undine reference, folks. Sorry about that.
Irma La Douce. Irma La Douce.
Irma La Douce.
By
That's
Billy Wilder.
Billy Wilder. So
1963. Brian O'Connell suggested it. And this I'm gonna have to ask my dad before I watch this because I believe this is a movie that my dad and mom missed getting to watch because I was going to be born. So
Thank you for that
Oh.
graphic. Thank you for that
Is that-
graphic, Bruce
Yeah.
Perky.
Is
it's
that
like
a
he had to leave, or he had to, maybe he was watching on TV and he couldn't watch it because they had to run to the hospital or something weird like that.
Oh, that's very. So this is. Wait.
is Jack Lemmon in that one?
I know that.
Yeah, he is. He is.
yeah, I
I'm
know.
sure he has to be. Hey, Bruce. Even with that whole birth story, I was kidding about. Thank you for that. That's an interesting birth sequence. How have you not seen that movie after that? Hearing that story from your pops.
Well, I might be wrong, yeah, I don't. It's just one of those ones I just there's just movies that just you just slip away. You don't forget about them. And in fact, I wasn't reminded about it until he put it up on the suggestion list. I was like, oh, wait, Irma La Douce. I want to see that. So Irma La Douce should be
Irma
cool.
La Douce. Well, I'm sure, 100% sure that Eric Holmes is going to watch it because he watches everything so he can be a team player and get on board with all of the movies that we cover. That is Bruce Perky's What's in the Box pick for next week. Thank you so much, Brian O'Connell. I believe Seven Samurai is his favorite film. FYI, just a little.
That's a good one.
Yeah, very good
It's
one.
a good one. You can't really argue with that one, right? For sure.
No, that one sucks.
Yeah.
Do I lose whatever legitimacy I have by saying The Magnificent Seven is a better movie than Seven
I mean,
Samurai?
they're the same story, but it's one's. I guess it all comes down to what style you like better. Do you want a samurai movie or do you want a western?
Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
true.
love westerns.
That's
That
true.
makes sense.
That's true. All right, guys, that is it. Eric Holmes, any final thoughts before we go?
Not really.
Not really.
I love you
Not really.
guys. I want to give
Me
you
too.
hugs.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, Eric Holmes. We gotta throw this in. Eric Holmes and Bruce Perky know that I have been addicted to cryptocurrency the last couple of months. They have not staged as of yet an intervention. I hear around the rumor mill that they might be calling or emailing Anderson Cowan. They might do a full-blown Zoom intervention to get me finally off of
Ooh,
my
Good
crypto,
idea. I like that.
cryptocurrency. That said, Eric Holmes is not going
him.
to
Enable him.
That yes, all right. That said, Eric, maybe Bruce Perky is a little bit more smarter, but Eric Holmes is trying to enable us because right now, thank you, listeners, for actually supporting us here on Find Your Film and Cinematics. The way you can support us, we don't have a Patreon, but if you rent or purchase any of the movies that we recommend via our Amazon links, we are members of the Amazon Associates Program. Those funds, those rentals and purchases that you make through our links, we will receive a small commission, and that will go into the Find Your Film in Cinematics Fund, split 4 ways with me, Eric Holmes, and Bruce Perky and Anderson Cowan. Bruce Perky's already received his latest share. I'm going to give Anderson Cowan his latest share. I, of course, am the first one to pocket it, and I make sure to keep a little bit off the side so none of these guys know what's going on behind the scenes because I'm corrupt. But then Eric Holmes, being the purest out of them all, I was going to give him his 25% of the share, and he said, "No, Greg, you know what we got to do? Eric Holmes, tell our listeners what you decided to do with your 25% of the Treasure of the Sierra Madre Amazon Associates program share. What did you decide to do? What is your dastardly Dr. Phibes Undine operation?
Well, Greg, I've decided to embrace the dark side of cryptocurrency and enable you to take my share.
So what's
Yeah.
going to happen is Eric
Put it
Holmes
into a thing and figure it out.
he's going to put 25%. He's going to give it to me, and I'm going to actually start the Find Your Film and Cinematics crypto fund, that 25%. So if you're in, oh yes, sir, Eric Holmes.
Maybe,
Yes, sir.
because maybe if it does well, like let's say it just blows up.
With
that
the
25%
cryptocurrency or a podcast? Which one? Or both? Which one?
Both. Let's say let's say you put in the cryptocurrency thing,
Okay, yes,
and
sir.
it's one of those things that blow up.
Mm-hmm.
And likely you put it in, it might make a couple bucks or go down or do what those things normally do. But let's just say
You're talking to Dan Tana from Las Vegas here. I'm gonna make it go up, buddy.
Let's just say,
yes,
theoretically, this is one of those things that blows up, and
yes, sir,
that 25% actually makes a mint.
Yes,
maybe that could be a lot of money to give to someone to fund a film. Maybe that could be something that we could donate to a Kickstarter campaign. And we've done a couple of those in the past.
Okay.
And that this could be because we know how much you like talking about cryptocurrency, and this could be that thing. Like probably not every week because I don't think it would fluctuate that much, but maybe once a month. Like you check on it. Hey, Greg, how's it going? Oh, it tanked. Well, that's the end of that. Or hey, Greg, how's it going? Oh, it went up a certain percent, and then it's something we could follow. And then if it gets to a certain amount, we'll be like, okay, take it out, and then we'll
fund a film project or something. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Could be Bruce, a fun thing.
Bruce, what do you think of that? I think that's a great idea.
I think that's an excellent idea.
I personally like the selfish idea of just so we could use all of the thousands of dollars that we're gonna get to fund my personal Greg's Getting Fatter Eclair fund, but Eric Holmes has a more societal purview of actually we might fund some film stuff. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. No, that's a great idea.
When you take out a percent, like the Eclair percentage for
or bury it. You could bury it in a vault under a Vegas casino and guard it by a zombie tiger.
Okay, that was not. Okay.
That's a great idea.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so listeners, if you want to support our habit, but in all jest, all fairness aside, in truth, that's a great idea. You know what? That I guess 25% of that Amazon Associates, spearheaded by Eric Holmes, he's going to figure out. He's going to lead that charge. We're going to actually keep that, and we're going to put that in crypto. And if and when it goes up, we will use that to fund some film projects. Sounds good. Sounds good to us. All right,
and that's how we will find our film.
Oh, that's how and also Eric Holmes is also our brand strategist. Very good job, Eric Holmes, on that. We're gonna lead out as usual. Bruce Perky, your Dr. Perks. Any things you want to say to us, Dr. Perks?
9. Well, 9. Okay. Wait, I gotta feed my neck. Hang on. Feeding my neck.
Okay, folks, that is a Vincent
9.
Price. That is a Vincent Price reference. We went out on a very bloody note. Folks, we will see you next week. Thanks again for supporting us and listening to us on Find Your Film.